In the midst of profound meditative absorption, how do you perceive the dissolution of conventional notions of time and space, and what implications does this have for your understanding of the eternal present?
Well, after reading that segment from the Bhagavad Gita, it seems like you can be conscious of all of the kinds of activities that can occur within but they are not, they don't have the reality, or you see them for what they are, not what they aren't, I guess.
Something to that, yeah.
Right. But I know, for instance, if you follow some of the different sages, like Sri Ramana Maharshi, and so on and so forth, they are capable of interacting with people who are not beyond just being confined to the corporeal world. I mean, he goes out and helps them build their little brick walls and
sure,
and so forth. So he's not able to not interact with people, or interact with people who are bound by thinking that the Maya is real.
Right. It's the disillusion of the illusion of conventional notations of time and space. It's disillusion of the illusion doesn't mean that you don't experience the same physical reality.
Right. I mean, because he interacts with anybody who comes up and asks him questions.
Sure.
And he realizes the limitations of their viewpoint, and he doesn't help them to meddle in waters that they are not able to deal with.
Yeah, well, that's considerate or compassionate depending on the situation.
Right.
Yeah. But yeah, I mean, the dissolution of convention, maybe I've never experienced it. Is this talking about how do we perceive the process of its dissolution, or how do we perceive once it's happened?
Well, I imagine it would be disconcerting to somebody who was firmly attached to the manifested world.
Oh, yeah.
All of a sudden not see it as being real, perhaps.
Yeah.
Well, but it's not.
I know it's not.
Yeah.
It's
and
just
here we are talking about conventional notions, which are concepts, and that which is real and that which is awareness is between those concepts.
Right.
Those concepts really interfere with our awareness of that which is.
Yeah. It isn't the dissolution,
which is the eternal present.
Yeah, it's not the dissolution of the perceptions or the things like that. It's just that you perceive them while you're in a place that's more real.
Yeah. This is
well, at any rate, it's you might say, for the sage, the reality of the manifested world, which is supported, of course, by the divine. In other words, its manifestation is a state of being, as a certain limited state of being, is, you might say, part of the entire of the Manvantara is subject to being real insofar as God is manifesting the possibilities of his being.
Yeah, the fundamental illusion is that there's I who is experiencing that.
Right. Yeah.
Yes, that's right.
And I don't have anything to say about that, actually. I mean, I have been in states, if that's the right term, that seem to be beyond these notions, but I don't have anything to say about them. It's just not,
Ineffable.
well, yeah. I mean, and it's a otherworldly quietness that I can really appreciate.
Well, I was wondering when you talk about the conventional conceptions of space and time, how you would compare and contrast that conventional conceptions to what is the actual reality about space and time. Is that
Well,
answerable?
there's descriptions of 2 or 3 levels of it.
Yeah.
The lowest level is the one where one is no longer limited. I guess you might call it the psychic level, where one lives in a psychic illusion that the psychic or the possibilities are real, and we don't accept any reality beyond that. And in that case, time and space
Always seem real.
are seen as objects that we live in and that we interact with and that we think are real.
Yeah, we think that those are conditions of reality.
Yes.
But in fact, there are conditions of
Temporality.
Well, of the manifestation of the form that they live under.
Yeah.
Right. So you might say the revelation that is the form of, say, Christianity or any of or each of the traditions is a manifestation that is they are confined to believing that is the reality.
Yeah, I also have to say that, alas, that disillusion referred to in here is all too rare in my life. But I believe it has happened. Maybe even the thing I thought was the dissolution was an illusion, and
Well, from the metaphysical standpoint, man is not really capable of experiencing the direct touch of the divine, I don't think.
well, not as a man, anyway.
Yeah, right. He can see the different levels of things, but he can't. I mean, I think that's open to man's intellect. That is his intellect, is the ability to see that, but he cannot experience, so to speak, the revelation of seeing beyond that.
Well,
So,
I don't know about the experience, but if there's any if you're telling yourself, if your mind is giving you a description of it, it's not it. You're not looking at it anymore. You're looking at your thoughts.
right. But I don't think metaphysics, one can see that there are these levels.
One can think about it that way.
Yeah, but they are still, to some extent, within the confines of the intellect.
Yeah. Yeah, and not the highest intellect necessarily.
That's right.
You can look at those in the discursive mind all you want.
Right. And it says in lots of places that there's not a division between the upper reaches of the mind and metaphysical thought. But what there is there's a limitation that you cannot be experiencing the divine beauty that touches the soul directly with metaphysics. You can realize
I see. No, that's right. That's right. I mean, this question is about experience. It's not about
right.
Normal kind of understanding.
So I think Guénaud discusses that to some extent in his East and West and study of Hindu. He brings out the 17 rules of that can't be denied metaphysically, but they can't be seen beyond either.
Yeah. Anyway, it's we're talking about an experience that is indescribable.
Right.
And you don't and thus you don't describe it, as it's happening, because you would no longer be in that dissolution place.
Or no, you're right.
So it's only something you could talk about after the fact, and you're no longer there looking at what you're describing.
Yes.
For that matter, is there anything to look at?
Well, you might say it's an illusion to think that all of the things that you think are real are mainly consciousness, the contents of consciousness.
Well, every experience is, right?
Yes, that's right. But most people don't. I mean, that's something they feel that they're losing something, and so they stay confined to the area they're in.
Well, that takes me back to the wording of the question then. What do we mean by the conventional notions of space and time?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Well, I think I have an idea. I substituted the word conception earlier and now I see it's notions, but I think they could mean more or less the same thing. But I think a conception is a kind of mental tool that we, at least humans, and maybe use to make sense of our experience.
The mind reaches for in order to have some control.
So and some understanding about what's going on, what's going on. So we have these conceptions, but the conceptions are different, and some of them may be inadequate, and some of them may be adequate and helpful in many ways. But we do, I guess, in a course of meditation, can realize that it's the conception, whatever it may is or may have been, or whether it's any good or not. You can still sort of experience the reality.
I don't mean to be facetious, but that someone was asked how do you eat an elephant, and he says, well, first you have to divide it into bite-sized pieces.
Conceptions.
Yes. So yes, the intellect, the area of the intellect is you can divide it in ways that make you understand what's above what and what's beneath what and so on and so forth. But you haven't actually got to the real realization of it.
No, that's right.
That gets a little closer with a good, adequate conception, but it's still a conception.
It's still a conception, and if you're trying to figure out what it is, then it's just an internal dialogue. You're just talking about the experience rather than fully having it.
Right.
Or being it. There really isn't much you could say about that, really. If it is beyond all those things, then when you're no longer beyond all those things, how in the world can you describe what you see because you don't see that anymore, or you don't not see that anymore, depending.
Well, in many respects, I guess, you get to you come to a realization that all of that external thing isn't something that you really wish to waste your time with.
Well, and it really ultimately isn't external. That's just
Right.
the attribute to it. We don't experience objects. We experience our experience.
Right.
And if there's a chair on the other side of the room, what does it mean to experience, that chair, or experience the image of that chair?
Well, it's able to
Doesn't mean that.
contain everything, including the very being of the divine, which is the first, you might say, is the highest level.
Or you could say that everything we experience is an experience before it's anything else.
That's right. I mean,
And that I mean, even right now, while we're mumbling about these things and speculating, the reality is still the reality.
right.
It's just we're engaged in this whatever it is we're doing here, and our attention is on that instead of on the nature of experience.
If we wanted to further define this, I would think that all of Maya, it's possible for a sage to view any particular part of it in exclusion of some of the other. Not that he would want to do so, but
I'm not sure I know what you mean.
well, if I want to think about some aspect of Maya because someone has asked me a question about it, I'm able to explore the possibilities of that particular level of understanding.
Yeah, at least however your mind responds to the question.
That's right.
But we are talking about this profound meditative absorption.
Well, there is a point which I guess if you believe Sidi Abubakr and several others, that all of a sudden, I mean, you keep trying to perceive beyond where you are, and
But
you can't, and all of a sudden, all of this disappears to just the reality of the divine, of the view of the divine.
Well, yeah, I mean, trying to perceive is really the veil.
Yes. Yeah, trying to perceive is really getting in the way.
Right.
That's right, exactly. You're confined in some respects to Maya,
and you want things to be different.
Yes, and you want to go beyond that, but because you keep thinking about that as something to go beyond, that you don't.
Right. But if you can be aware of the presence between those thoughts, you're already there.
That's right.
Yeah. Or it's already there.
It's already there. Yes. Okay. Fair enough.
Yes.
Luna, you want to chime in here?
Sure, I've been enjoying this, but I'll say that the best way I can think of answering the question is to say that in the midst of profound meditative absorption, you can perceive the dissolution of conventional notions of time and space and duality by eating a cockroach.
I hope there are other ways to do that.
There probably are.
I should explain.
That may require a little explanation.
So there's this Brazilian author, Clarice Lispector. I'm not sure if any of you are familiar with her, but she's one of my favorite 20th century authors, something of a mystic. And I personally think that we need a new way of presenting eternal truths. I think things like the sacred texts, Quran and Bible and Buddhist sutras and Upanishads don't really necessarily talk to us moderns. The novel can. And she wrote this novel, a non-dualistic novel about a woman alone in a room who accidentally was closing the door and injured a cockroach. And the next 100 pages were her contemplating the nature of existence, and finally eats the cockroach as a symbolic representation of joining with God.
Cool.
Or taking communion by having a wafer and a sip of wine or something. I mean, it sounds quite similar.
You know, she's one of those authors you need to read to get it, you know, because I'm just describing the plot, and the plot is woman alone in room, hurts cockroach, eats cockroach, realizes cockroach is God, becomes one with God. But it's more than that. But fundamentally, I like it because it's saying cockroach is God too. You know, I mean, and it also brings things down, brings it down from the transcendence to immanence. And I think that's important. I think that we need, in our moments of profound meditative absorption, rather than looking out there, that we need to see the divine all around us. This one author, Tim Robinson, he wrote quite an interesting book of scientific cartography about the Aran Islands. He said he's an atheist in the sense that he doesn't believe in the imaginary God that all of these religions created. But that's okay, because the divine is in all of the rocks that he was mapping out. And you know, I think there's something to that. I think there's more reality to the God in the rocks than the old man with the white beard on the throne.
Yeah, the direct experience of the rock is already better than the image of the old man. But
Well, what's the Indians that they say about the rocks that are round, that they are formed by the divine, and they have a level of reality that is above the rocks that aren't round.
well, that may work in a certain context. I don't think it has a universal application.
Well, I think it's all of the Indians use it, but anyway, they wouldn't use other kinds of rocks, for instance, to heat the air in their meditation area.
Yes, but that's preserving a symbol, not mistaking the symbol for that which it symbolizes.
Yeah, but the symbol of something is a projection of a reality.
Yes, that which it symbolizes, but as soon as you try to describe that, that's not it.
Well, yes, because you are still within the manifested world, the relationships of the things within the manifested world have a limited reality in comparison to vision of what is contained in consciousness.
David, we've not heard from you. Have any comments on that dissolution of time and conventional space?
We need to, what did you say?
He's talking to David, but David.
Yeah.
I had to unmute. It's kind of hard to unmute on the phone. Well,
Uh,
it's the difference between relative reality and absolute reality. In absolute reality, there is no time and space. It's perceptive properties of the mind.
Right.
yeah,
So-
and there's nothing you can say about it.
Yes, all you can say is that certain actions occur that seem to be properties of manifestation or being, and everything else we're describing from the relative side of things.
Yeah, the question is, I suppose then, not what the patterns on the water are, but what's the substance in which they occur. But we're basically talking about being aware of being aware.
Okay.
I don't think the realization of consciousness or even the anticipation of doing so, of consciousness in its completeness, is a step down.
Well, if there's an object and a subject, you're still short of the ultimate, of the absolute reality.
The absolute reality is the unity of subject and object, no?
Yes.
Well, yeah, it's realizing that there's no difference.
The only
Yeah.
reality there is.
Yeah, it's not bringing them together. It's realizing that they aren't separate.
Next question. Anybody
Please.
else? Anybody
I'm
else?
getting lost here.
We nailed that one. We nailed that one good.
To what extent has your exploration of paradox, the cohabitation of certainty with ineffable mystery, transformed both your spiritual discipline and the narrative of your inner life?
I love paradox.
Cohabitation.
It's shifted it from conceptualization to experiential knowledge. That's the big change.
Yeah, the awareness of a paradox is actually the true nature of that doesn't have anything to do with what's paradoxical.
Right. And finally, the paradox is a comparison and a conceptual comparison, and all of that's false.
Yeah, it's also the breakdown of the distinction between the opposites.
Yes, that's right. And when you get there, it's unexpressible.
Yeah.
Basically, that's part of the problem of time and space that we were talking about earlier. You actually believe two things that disagree with each other to be real, but you have a difficulty of doing it simultaneously.
Yeah, but
Because
to perceive the
real.
paradox is to have that simultaneity, which is in fact an experience beyond the opposites, and it's enough to make you laugh sometimes.
Doesn't paradox mean the two different thoughts or ideas that are incompatible? Like there's no way they could both be true at the same time? Is that the definition?
Well, yeah.
They can't be contained as a coherent thought.
They at least
experience.
They seem to be mutually exclusive, but it turns out that they are both included.
Right. That's the reason they seem paradoxical is because that we believe in a certain totality of reality of each one of those things.
But the thing
and they can't occupy the same space at the same time.
Right, but what happens when you perceive the fullness of the paradox, let's say, is that the opposition dissolves, and there's the experience of paradox in its fullness is a unique thing of its own.
That's true if you realize that, but you may just go to a different area in your mind so that you don't have the problem.
Oh yeah, exactly. A lot of us automatically, without any thinking at all, avoid paradox because it can be uncomfortable. But on the other side of that discomfort, or right in the midst of it, is a kind of freedom.
Right. So whenever I run into a paradox, it warns me that my conceptions of reality are limited.
Yeah, exactly.
You
A
can't.
paradox always points beyond. It's like a simultaneous affirmation or a simultaneous rejection or denial of two things, each of which needs the other to have any meaning.
So paradoxes are really useful.
Oh yeah,
they really give you clear indication of the limitations of thought.
Yeah.
I'd like to bring up a paradox.
Oh, go ahead, please.
In all of my education, philosophy and science has stated that a subject is a particular function of a special object, where the ultimate subject is not an object in reality. And makes it seem like a paradox, but the real paradox is, how can a subject be an object at the same time?
Yes. And yet it could not be otherwise.
Except academically.
I mean, it's basically true that anything in Maya that is believed in as if it were absolute is going to run into something else that can be believed in as if it were absolute.
But normally subject is meaningly without object, and vice versa. They depend on each other, for their meaning. But since they don't, neither of them have an independent reality, they're really not real. So you find yourself in that emptiness of denial of illusory knowledge. Illusory something or other. There's just something nice about paradox, because it just sort of it smashes the conceptions that are involved.
Right.
And
that's right.
Every paradox is a gateway experience of non-duality, in a sense.
Well, immediately that things that you've taken to be to some extent absolute can't be.
Well, yeah.
Okay.
But the paradox is that they can't both be true, and yet they are both true, and yet, I like it.
Well, they're not absolute. They're not absolute. That's the.
But is the pure experience of the paradox closer to the absolute than the two assumed things that are in opposition? Yeah, I would say.
Right. Well, it points out the fallacy of thinking that all of these objects that we have in the manifested world are absolute, or any of them are.
Yeah, and also that we can know them as separate objects.
Right.
I mean, what is the connection between the perceiver and the perceived?
Well, there's the word is always denigrated to subjective.
Oh yeah, but the thing is, the thing that separates subject and object is itself a kind of experience of paradox, because they don't exist within the realm of any duality at all. They don't exist independently.
So the subject is the observer, and the object is that which is being observed, I guess.
Yeah.
That's a good enough
definition. And
that's a good enough definition, but there's the experience of the paradox.
Well, it can't truly be experienced because it rests upon thinking things are absolute which aren't.
Well, I think the experience of a paradox is something that shatters forms, mental forms.
Right.
And you have simultaneous yes and no, and that's why often you can laugh at them. But I love paradoxes.
Well, yeah, they're a definite measure of
limitation.
Of limitations.
I don't like it when it manifests in terms of attitude or behavior toward me. I don't like it seeing it in the behavior of someone, but at the same time, the fact that I like it or don't like it is beside the point.
Well, that sort of reminds me of those old westerns where the cowboys all get together and hang the guy who stole the horse without following the law, so to speak. Well, this subjectivity is you only believe that something is absolute. You could only believe it's absolute in isolation. Once you put it next to something else that's erroneously believed to be absolute, it's a paradox.
Yeah. Well, everything in ordinary experience is paradoxical. But
you go based upon assumptions of the reality of something, which may or may not be. You may or may not find, and usually the arguments against it are to show that something is paradoxical.
So the question, George, is: have you hanged any horse thieves lately?
Have I had what?
Have you hanged any horse thieves lately?
No. I try to stay away from that.
It's a metaphorical question.
Yes.
I thought it was a good one.
Oh, Terry, this is touching upon your statements in prior gatherings about the tree of knowledge of good and evil.
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
And that before sampling that thought, there were no paradoxes.
Yeah, that's right.
True.
Exactly. Before taking that on ourselves, all was one, and that's what we lost.
All right, everything was harmonious. There was no mutual opposition between subject and object.
Yeah, so that's why being for or against anything is the greatest of all diseases.
Yeah, it is.
So you're saying Adam and Eve had no concept or notion of good or evil before they ate the apple or whatever, but
that's what cost them paradise.
Yeah, they were.
It seems to me like I can perfectly understand why they wanted to know about the difference between good and evil. I mean, why wouldn't they, or shouldn't they? I
There
guess.
wasn't any difference.
Well, they didn't want to be limited in any way, and so God's commandment that the fruit don't imbibe of the bit of the fruit of the tree of knowledge,
The knowledge of
was
good.
forbidden them. And,
Right.
So by violating that, they were committing you might say, the first evil, or
Yeah, that's the original sin.
blame it on the snake, of course, but
I know, but it's not the snake. It's
Not
the
the snake's
entrance
fault.
into the world of duality, where all is no longer one.
Right.
And
things are better than others.
Yeah, exactly.
I think paradox is. I
Hmm?
think paradox is one of the greatest teaching tools.
It is.
There's actually not enough of it in the Western tradition. I think the Zen koans. What's Buddha? A dried stick of shit. What would you do if you saw the Buddha? Kill him. It's fantastic. Also, you can think of Meister Eckhart. He said, the same eye through which I see God is the eye through which God sees me.
Yeah.
Right.
Or Herman Melville said the best way to describe God is through silence.
Mm-hmm. There's no opposition in silence.
And you can even actually write this as a mathematical equation, which is interesting. I mean, if you make a function like fx equals 1 divided by x, as x approaches infinity, the whole function reduces towards 0, but at the same time that it's veering towards nothingness, it's also heading off towards infinity.
Yeah.
So you've got the paradox of infinity and nothingness keep coming closer and closer to each other the closer they get to the farther it goes on, you know, two opposites come closer together. And for people who, let's say, can't understand traditional metaphysics, put it in the form of a mathematical equation, because it says the same thing.
Yeah, and infinity by its very nature leaves nothing out. So
Well,
there
if you
is
take
nothing else.
if you take the natural numbers and you take them by adding 1 to each one of them and dividing it by that, and if you go the other way for infinitesimals, or actually that was infinitesimals that I described, but infinitesimals, you take every natural number and you divide it by the additional number. Then if you multiply each one of those at their relative position times each other, you end up with 1. So that's, it's so to speak to say, regardless of how small we are in space or how large we are in space, it is all contained in 1.
Yeah, exactly. There is, yeah.
How could it be otherwise?
Right. Oneness is like infinity.
That's right. It's
Yeah.